I came back to Pine Lake expecting peace, maybe a quiet weekend at my grandfather's cabin, and instead, I found rubble. A bright pink sign staked in the dirt like some sick joke, demolished by HOA for unpaid fees. Contact Scarlett Torres. My stomach dropped. I never missed a single payment. I never got a single notice. And then, in the wreckage, I saw something that made my chest seize up. My grandfather's Purple Heart medal caked in mud, the box smashed to splinters. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about property. This was war. You ever stand in silence so loud your ears ring? That's what it felt like crunching through debris that used to be my childhood. Pieces of the kitchen where Grandpa taught me to flip pancakes. Splinters of the recliner where he fell asleep during baseball games. The workshop gone. That sacred place where he taught me to measure twice cut once. Now just broken lumber scattered like bones. My neighbor, Bill Patterson, rushed over looking like he'd aged 10 years in an hour. He said he tried to stop them, even called the cops, but Scarlett had official paperwork. She told everyone I'd abandoned the property. Bill looked at me like he'd just betrayed a lifelong friend. Scarlett Torres, HOA president, self-appointed Queen of Pine Lake. Late 40s, dressed like she owns a private runway, and with a Mercedes parked out front that probably costs more than half the homes in this neighborhood. She'd been targeting people like me for years. Absentee owners, military families, the elderly, anyone too distracted or too weak to fight back. She told the community my cabin was unsafe, dragging down property values. What she really meant was it was standing in the way of her profit. I called my insurance company right there in the ruins, thinking at least I'd get some compensation. The rep went quiet the second I mentioned Scarlett's name. "Mr. Barnes, our records show a cancellation request signed by you 4 weeks ago. They sent me the file. It was my name, my signature. Forged. That wasn't just theft. That was fraud." And then the phone rang. No caller ID. I answered. A distorted voice hissed, "Stop digging into Scarlett Torres or your family will regret it." My blood went cold. "Who is this?" I demanded. The answer, "Someone who knows where your mother works, where your sister lives. Drop this federal boy." Click. Silence. I drove home shaking, pulled into my driveway and froze. My mailbox was gone. Not just dented, obliterated. A sledgehammer lay next to twisted metal, and taped to it was a note. "This is what happens to people who don't mind their own business." The American flag my grandfather gave me shredded. Someone had been watching me. They knew when I'd be gone. They knew where to strike. I deal with criminals for a living, but this was personal. That night I sat at my family's table, my mother, Catherine, Deputy Attorney General, my father, James, a judge, my sister, Emma, an IRS investigator. 3 of the sharpest minds in law, and we were all staring at Grandpa's Purple Heart lying between us. I wanted to scream, "Let's crush her," but instead I heard warnings. Catherine's voice was like ice. "If we use federal resources for family business, our careers are over. Mine, yours, Emma's." 30 years down the drain. My father was the same. Conflict of interest, ethics violations. My whole family had spent lifetimes building their reputations, and this fight could burn it all down. That's when the doubt set in. Sitting there, I wondered if maybe I was the reckless one. Maybe Scarlett was right. Maybe I should have kept up with the property better. Maybe all this was my fault. I actually thought about walking away, letting the cabin go, pretending none of this mattered. Then Emma slid her laptop across the table. "Look at this. Spreadsheets, bank records." Scarlett had been funneling HOA funds into 3 separate shell companies. She reported $47,000 in income on her taxes, but her accounts showed transfers worth hundreds of thousands. Judge Crawford, the same state judge I'd been investigating for corruption for years, was the one signing her demolition orders. My ex-fiancée Rebecca, who I hadn't spoken to in 15 years, came forward with files proving Scarlett had been targeting me since the day Grandpa's obituary hit the paper. It wasn't just coincidence. It wasn't mismanagement. It was deliberate. That was the spark. I remembered standing in Grandpa's workshop, him placing that Purple Heart in my tiny hand and saying, "Legacy isn't just metal, son. It's what you protect after I'm gone." I wasn't about to let Scarlett erase him. Not for money, not for anything. We gathered everything: fraudulent inspection reports with photos years out of date, fake signatures on insurance cancellations, evidence of HOA funds laundered through shell companies. Bill rallied the neighbors who'd been too scared to speak. Emma prepared the financial analysis, and I held on to that Purple Heart like it was a weapon. The showdown came at an emergency HOA meeting. 48 households crammed into the Pine Lake Community Center, tension so thick it felt like gunpowder in the air. Scarlett swept in wearing all black, Judge Crawford trailing her with a briefcase full of legal intimidation. She started her speech with crocodile tears. "Friends, federal investigators are targeting our community. Anyone cooperating may be considered complicit." I could see the fear ripple through the crowd. Mothers clutching their husbands' elderly residents, whispering about losing their homes. I stood. Enough. The room went dead quiet. I held up Grandpa's Purple Heart. This is what Scarlett called an abandoned hazard. This medal was earned carrying 23 wounded soldiers off Heartbreak Ridge. That cabin was built with his pension board by board, and Scarlett Torres destroyed it for profit. Gasps cut through the silence. People shifted, some crying, some glaring at Scarlett. Emma and a forensic accountant rolled in boxes of documents. Projected on the wall, bank statements, transfers, shell company records. $340,000 stolen from this community, Emma announced. Every single one of you overcharged. That money, it didn't go to improvements. It went to Scarlett's personal accounts. The room erupted. Shouts, outrage, betrayal boiling over. Scarlett raised her hands, desperate. "My mother has cancer. I did what I had to do to save her life." For a split second, the crowd hesitated, until Mr. Davis, a frail veteran with tears in his eyes, stood up. "My wife died of cancer 2 years ago. I sold everything I owned to pay for her care. What I didn't do was steal from my neighbors." His voice cracked like a rifle shot. "You don't get to use suffering as an excuse for evil." That broke the spell. Residents shouted over each other, demanding answers, calling her a thief. Crawford tried to bang his briefcase, insisting this is all proper legal procedure, but Emma cut him down. "These inspection reports you signed, Judge, they're forgeries. Photos from years before, doctored documents. You enabled fraud." His face went white. He tried to slip toward the exit. And then the doors swung open. Federal agents stormed in. "Judge Martin Crawford, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and violation of civil rights under color of law." The room froze, then exploded in cheers. Agents turned to Scarlett. "Scarlett Torres, you're under arrest for racketeering, wire fraud, and embezzlement." Scarlett's composure shattered. She screamed, mascara streaking down her face. "You're killing my mother. She'll die without that money." The lead agent's voice was calm, merciless. "Ma'am, less than 30% of the funds you stole went to medical care. The rest went to luxury cars, real estate, and offshore accounts." The cuffs clicked shut. I stood there, the metal still warm in my palm, while neighbors who'd lived in fear for 2 years finally saw the tyrant dragged out. Crawford shuffled behind her head, down the judge who sold his oath for cash, now just another criminal in chains. And I realized this wasn't revenge, this was justice. Some legacies are worth fighting for no matter what it costs.